Celtics win 99-81 over the Kings Wednesday night in the first game that they know that they don't have Rajon Rondo. Right. This is the Garden Report on Celticsblog and CLNS Radio. All right, it's a late night show. We're a late night crew. Evans, Clinchy, Jimmy Toscano, and Jared Weiss. They're from Celticsblog. I'm from CLNS Radio. The Celtics win this one 99-81 over the Kings. They were more like the Sonics tonight because they did not exist for the second, or at least the second quarter of this game. That's right. Yeah, just came up with that one. It was a very good second quarter for the Celtics, where they scored 37 points and shot 16 for 19 from the field. And it's all with Paul Pierce not even scoring until there's about 3 minutes left in that quarter. So we'll talk about how this new offense looks. Is it even a new offense? There is definitely a new backcourt happening right now, though. And then Jared Sullinger left in the first quarter with back spasms. He did not return. No current timetable on him. We'll hear from Doc. Doesn't mean there's no timetable for his return, but we don't know how bad it is.
Day to day.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Yeah, hour to hour right now. And this show is about to go minute to minute. Evans, let's start with you. I know. Oh, we are going to ball out, by the way, at the end of the show. We always do that. We'll start with you. By the way, just want to credit Jimmy. He said it before we went on the air. We did our All-Star snubs a couple shows ago. He picked Brooke Lopez, who is no longer an All-Star snub. So, Jimmy Toscano, congratulations.
Lucky guess which conference does the guy get hurt.
Which
clearly the Western player gets hurt, the Marcus Sol gets it, whatever.
Clearly means that David Stern is a fan of the show. So
we already knew
good
that.
to have you, Dave.
So if you're upset about Rondo, blame this guy.
This guy had him injured. Paid somebody.
I had nothing to do with that.
At least you're not fumbling your pen away like you were earlier.
Thank me at the end of the season when the Celtics are the 4th or 5th seed.
There we go. So we'll stop dreaming and we'll start talking about the actual game that happened tonight. We had a new offensive system tonight. It was not based on dribble penetration from Rajon Rondo because Rajon Rondo's not playing right now. So they had to find a new way. They had to find a new way to kind of get the ball in there. And they did it by kind of running a Spurs-style offense of just kind of swinging the ball, kind of getting guys moving around the wings, and being able to just have really good multi-directional ball movement. But it really started with Paul Pierce being the point forward that we've seen him, be when he has to be for the Celtics, especially before Rajon Rondo was really ready to take over in the key moments for this team. So, Evans, do you think that this point forward system's going to work? And I mean, it clearly worked tonight.
Well, I wouldn't reduce it to quite that. I mean, I wouldn't say that Paul Pierce is the guy running the offense. It's more, Pierce will run some plays, and Courtney Lee will run some, and Avery Bradley will run some, and there's no one set guy that controls the offense every single possession. And it's hard to guard against a team like that. They're just so unpredictable right now. And it's unpredictable in a good way. They're not making mistakes. They're sharing the ball and playing good team basketball. You said Spurs style, which I think is a great way of describing it, because, the Spurs, what they do really well is they make good decisions. When it's their shot, they shoot it. When it's not, they pass. They're really smart with the ball. And the Celtics were that tonight. They were really smart and team-oriented.
Yeah, he literally said what I was going to say about being smart. And I think the Spurs are like the Western Conference Celtics in a way because they've got the older players. They're, like you said, they're smart. And now the Celtics are moving the ball. And I think it's like you don't know. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if it's going to be Terry or if it's going to be Bradley or Lee or Pierce. And I think, when we talk about Pierce,
it's not Jeff Green.
It's not Jeff Green. You talk about the point forward. I mean, I think, as Doc was saying, Pierce was playing a little too much point, not enough forward tonight. But I think that's one of those things that he's going to figure it out. It's going to be a game-by-game thing. If it's working with him bringing the ball up and being the facilitator more so, then he's going to go with it. And if it's not, then maybe it's Terry. And that's sort of the beauty of it. And I think that there might have been at times when Rondo was in the court that players depended on him too much and they kind of stood around too much. And now that they are finding it within themselves, like, oh yeah, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can dribble myself. I can, go without the ball. I can, spot up and shoot. I'm not just watching Rondo do everything and waiting for him to choose me to be the guy.
Exactly. Let's take a look at what Doc said. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about how they're able to get a little bit more inventive for the rest of the unit now that Rondo isn't helming the offense.
Listen, that's how we have to play, though, overall. It's just simple, good basketball, advance the ball, move the ball. I got on Paul at the beginning of the game because I thought he was trying to be the facilitator. He must have read some of y'all dumbass articles. And then once he started moving the ball, he was great because he's still our scorer. I said, Paul, you're still our scorer, by the way. But overall, I thought everybody just played their role and played great.
So Paul needed to be the scorer for this team. But just going back to the Spurs comparison, what's really good about the Spurs offense, the reason why they've always worked is because they had a bunch of guys that were good ball movers, and all their plays have options on them. Now, the Celtics tonight were running some of these plays, like the one that I was talking, I think it was Gethin Coolbaugh, so I can't get any credit from you guys. Talking to Gethin Coolbaugh from NBA on NBC.com about a play that really works for Jason Terry, because they haven't been able to really run plays that work for Jason Terry, is you have kind of a staggered screen setup where they ran it with Wilcox and Bass. You have Wilcox closer to the rim, Bass outside. Both of them set a pick. You have Wilcox roll, and you have Bass kind of pop out, so you can get either a mid-range shot from Bass or a rolling dump down to Wilcox. And that's kind of the Spurs philosophy of just running plays where you have multiple passing options on every single play, and you have two equally acceptable outcomes for who you're trying to get the ball to shoot. Now, I know the couple times that they tried running that play, it didn't really work as well because they weren't really executing, let's say, as hard as humanly possible on those picks, or at least on those rolls and pops there. But Jimmy, do you think that they have the guys in place that can handle running that kind of option-based offense?
Oh yeah, they've got guys who can do multiple things. I mean, their bigs are outside shooters who can also play inside when they want to, and their guards can. I mean, we see how their guards and their forwards can stretch the floor from 3-point to mid-range, and they're also athletic enough to get to the hoop, like Lee and Green. Those guys, they can do it all. So I mean, as you said, if you create the options, those guys are going to be able to do. They'll be ready. They'll be in position to do what you need them to do if they get the ball. If whoever has the ball, chooses to go to them, or they have multiple, choices to go with.
The other thing about having a Spurs-style offense is that every single guy on that Spurs team has the confidence to take a shot when it's there. The Celtics, I mean, they've had some, I don't want to name names, but, Jeff Green, Brandon Bass. They've had some guys who have been a little bit... I'm going to name names, sorry. Who've been a little bit hesitant to take their shot. And it's not going to work unless every single guy knows where his shot is on the floor, when he should take it. And it's just, like we were saying earlier, people were waiting for Rondo to give them their shot to be the guy. Now they've all got to have the initiative themselves to just take the shot and not wait for Rondo to call the shots for them.
Right, and when they get the ball, decide. I think Doc said tonight, just be decisive, or whether it was Pierce, one or the other, don't hesitate. And I think when you miss shots like Bass has, and like Jet was doing, you are going to hesitate because you're going to look for another guy because you're not feeling it, you're doubting yourself. So I think, the main thing with this team, and sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't, it's confidence. When they're winning, we've seen them go on crazy winning streaks, but we've also seen them go on some pretty bad losing streaks too, and they're very streaky, and I think they're still going to be streaky without Rondo, but when they've got it going like they did tonight at points, the shots are falling, like third quarter, for example.
Yeah, I mean, what Doc said after the game was just keep it simple. If your shot's there, take it. If you're guarded and the shot's not there, pass it. Just make the obvious decision. Don't try to overthink it. Don't try to do anything too fancy. Keep it simple. Okay,
we want to talk about guys that are just simply defensive mavens. You got the Pitbulls, I think Courtney is trying to label them. Avery Bradley and Courtney Lee. Too soon. God. Too soon.
What?
Oh, too soon.
What do you mean?
It's only been like 5 years. You need at least 20 years to pull out that joke.
All right, well,
Infinity.
Don't tell him in 20 years.
Okay, there we go. All right, we're not cutting that out of the show. So Avery Bradley, who kind of looks like a pit bull or a pug or something like that, but
he acts like one on the court.
Yeah, he certainly does. Those guys are pretty swarming on defense tonight. You just look at the matchups. Isaiah Thomas went 2 for 10. Tyreek went 7 for 15. He had a pretty solid game, although I thought most of that really came in the second half for him. And then looking for Marcus Thornton here, he only took 7 shots. He was 1 for 4 from deep. They pretty much kept the offense from the guards at bay. It really forced either Tyreek or DeMarcus to go one-on-one. Before we even talk about them, let's take a look at what Avery had to say.
Definitely complement each other on the defensive end and the offensive end. We're both able to bring the ball up. And, when I'm pressuring the guy and I get tired, Courtney pressures him. So he compliments me a lot. He's a great player, great teammate.
So Avery talked about how they're able to basically switch off taking the responsibility. Yeah. Now, those are two guys that are very well conditioned. Those are guys that can really run. Yeah. But even if you're in amazing shape, you're still going to be tired after 30 minutes of play. So being able to have those guys switch off who covers the top guy, because let's face it, Rondo has not really been playing great one-on-one defense for about 2 or 3 seasons now. Pretty sure.
Sure you want to say that?
Yeah, I've been saying that for a while now.
Yeah,
I've been disappointed with Rondo's
his lack very little defense the last 2 or 3 games. I'm telling you.
Even before that, though, I mean, on a serious note, he does take games.
He's
off.
taken a lack of value of one-on-one
Right.
fighting.
I mean, when he first came in the league, he was known first for his defense, more than
Sure.
his offense. Rondo. Now he's known only for passing and facilitating and being a good floor general. But he uses so much energy, I think, on the offensive end where he kind of saves it on the defensive end.
But Avery, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off because Avery doesn't save it. And we're gonna make you save it because Avery doesn't save the energy at all. He goes all out. He goes all out on defense. He always is trying to run a half-court trap all by himself, even when nobody else is up for it. But he also moves really well off the ball offensively and cuts back door a lot. But I wanted to focus specifically on the defense because that was, I thought, what really was the difference for them tonight, Evans, was that their ball pressure forces so much more transition because it makes it so hard for teams to get into the paint, and it's forcing long rebounds that makes it easy to get in transition, or they're forcing turnovers. And this team wants to be a transition team more than ever right now because it's going to be a lot harder for them to execute in the half court. So they did it tonight. I mean, how did you think it looked tonight?
Oh, amazing. I mean, those two guys controlled the tempo of the game all by themselves. It was amazing. There was one play where Avery Bradley missed a corner three on offense, and he runs down the floor in like 4 seconds, and he gets a defensive rebound like 4 seconds later on the other end of the floor. And I was just like, how in the world did he just do that? I mean,
he's done that a few times in the past couple of weeks.
The speed that those two guys showed just going up and down the floor is just incredible.
Yeah.
And I mean, Courtney Lee and Avery Bradley both are, pardon the cliche, but they're hungry. You know, Avery Bradley was out for 2 months with an injury. Courtney Lee was buried behind Jason Terry on the depth chart. Both those guys wanted to get out there and play. They wanted to prove themselves, and they couldn't do it. Now they're out there, and they've just been holding it in all season, ready to just burst with this energy, and they've been amazing on the floor so far.
That's a really good point. Holding it all back, like Avery watching and waiting, and Lee, there were some games where he was getting like 10 or less minutes, and he was probably wondering to himself, what do I got to do to get out here? And I don't think he ever, he never had a bad attitude about it. I just think he's just been waiting for his opportunity, and now here it is. And like you said, they're showing it on both ends. They're energetic. They're in your face on defense, and they're getting out in the break on offense. And I mean, that one play with Bradley tonight, the block on Isaiah Thomas, that was like LeBron James coming from behind the trailer block. That was great. I mean, I
don't know. I think that was more Avery Bradley coming from behind. He's made a habit of that.
Also more goaltending, but it's still awesome.
Okay. I don't think that the refs could have clearly have seen that as goaltending. I mean, it was right at the point of you can't take away from that. You can't take away from what he did, though, whether it was goaltending or not.
Awesome play.
He came all the way back, and when Pierce was just trotting at that point, I mean, that was an easy two. I think Isaiah was thinking, okay, here's a layup for me, and then all of a sudden, no, you're not going to get that from me.
So
Avery said, you're not going to get that from me.
Okay, so great Avery Bradley impression.
Yeah.
So you got the voice down and everything.
Great.
But
I heard it from up here.
Do you think that this, because basically Avery and Courtney are two guys that are good. Courtney has been inconsistent this year, but off the ball shooting guards, basically.
Yeah.
They're guys that aren't ball dominant shooting guards. They work well with making backdoor cuts, getting into transition, spotting up. So how does this, if you're not going to go with Pierce running pick and roll up top, how else would they try to create plays for themselves?
It's going to kind of be by committee, right? I mean, like, I think they're just going to take turns play after play. Like, one guy brings the ball up and the next guy does and the next guy does. I mean, like, Avery Bradley has some experience playing the point. He did it in high school and college, and it was only when he got here and he had Rajon Rondo blocking him that he moved to the two. I mean, so he knows how to bring the ball to the floor, and Courtney Lee does too, but none of them is just going to take the job full time and just keep it. I mean, it's not going to be that simple, I don't think.
I mean, it's just game-by-game basis, like Evan said. I mean, whatever the defense is giving you, you take it. And that's what Doc said. Make the quick decision. If there's a guy that you think has a better shot, dish it. If not, be aggressive, take the shot, drive to the hoop. I mean, Courtney Lee, he can be a scorer. I mean, when he was on the Rockets, he obviously had a bigger role on offense than he does in the Celtics. So I think he's going to have to find that little bit of Courtney Lee and bring it over here now.
Yeah, and just with Avery especially, they're not going to be able to run the pick and roll and be able to make the passing decisions right out the gate. So I think what they tried to do tonight was make sure that they always had either Paul or Terry out there, because both of those guys can run the pick and roll, and that seemed to work for them. Was that they had Terry, I think, had 4 assists. I mean, there weren't going to be a ton of assists in this game just because the second half was kind of a blowout situation. That's when it tends to go away from you. But as long as Doc can manage a rotation where either Terry or Pierce are always on the floor, they're always going to have someone that can manage to run just basic pick and roll sets and stuff like that, and be able to do some bailout offensively when they need to.
And honestly, Terry should be able to click with KG the way, in a similar way that he clicked with Dirk, with the pick and the pops and all that stuff. So I think that's something that they're going to find.
All right, well, let's go straight to balling up. Just quick update before we do that. We'll take a look at what Doc had to say. But Jared Sullinger missed. He was out in the first quarter with back spasms. He didn't return to the game. Let's just take a look at what Doc had to say.
Yeah, it was big for him, you know. So yes, I was very happy for him. Brandon is just it's like Jet for that one stretch. Sometimes you just need to see the ball go in the net, and then once he did that, and a couple of times you can see him get more aggressive.
Was Sullinger's back bothering him before the game?
I think it was bothering him in the draft. You know, and then you know, so. I just think, honestly, I know Eddie said something a week or two ago that it's been bothering him. And I think this will be what he'll have. He'll have these episodes, and we got to get him through it. Hopefully he doesn't miss games with them. But if he does, he does. And then get it right and come back.
So, you know, Doc said that Sully's thing, it's kind of been something that they've been dealing with, which is funny because we haven't heard a freaking word about it so far this year. We thought that the whole back thing was a mirage. It turns out maybe it wasn't after all. But, I mean, we don't really know anything about that until tomorrow, it looks like. But let's focus on Brandon tonight, who had a good game. And like Doc said, he's one of those guys that if he sees it's just like with Jeff Green, he clanks the first one, it's not going to be a good night. But if he gets a couple shots going, gets some good looks going, he's going to be okay. And he had his first, I think it was just about his first shot of the game, was one where he kind of was driving on for the pick and roll, and he saw Jason Thompson, and he just stopped short and put up like a bunny, and he bricked it. Yeah. And we were like, it's going to be one of those nights where Brandon's going to be scared to shoot. But then he came down a couple plays later, and he went baseline and threw it down. I think it was over Thompson himself. So Brandon was able to be resilient tonight. He hasn't really been too resilient for most of the year. But, I mean, Evans, just quickly your take. Do you think that Brandon gets a change of pace when he actually doesn't have to worry about Sully being there in front of him because Sully is injured for that game?
I hope he doesn't think that way. I hope he just, approaches his minutes, says his minutes to do whatever he wants with them and not think about other guys in the rotation. I don't know, though. I mean, it's hard to, these guys are human and they think about their job security all the time, I'm sure. But it's a tough question. I don't know.
I don't think so, because I know that it wasn't like what Sullinger left wasn't like a Rondo type injury where, Sullinger could have walked back out here at any moment and Bass would have been completely fine. I think it's just Bass in his own mind, like Doc said, seeing the shot fall, because he's honestly not good enough on the defensive end to warrant playing 25, 30 minutes a game if that shot's not falling, or if he's not being more aggressive down low or grabbing boards or what have you. So to see the shots fall tonight, what was he, 4 for 7, and also 3 steals tonight, which is actually really impressive as well. To see that happening, it's only a good thing for his confidence, and hopefully going forward, coming off the bench, maybe that's a good thing for him too. The energy that he brings off the bench might be good for him.
All right, well, let's go to Baller of the Night. Let's end the show by just dishing out some balling awards. Evans, we'll start with you because you're the furthest away from me and I can barely hear you.
Okay.
Who's your Baller of the Night?
I'm going to go with Courtney Lee. Usually I'm thinking about, looking at points and rebounds and assists and looking for the big numbers. Courtney Lee, not a lot of stats, 9 points, 3 assists, but I said this earlier, he controlled the tempo of the game just with the way he was running up and down the floor making plays. I really thought on both ends he was just so influential, and he only played 26 minutes. He wasn't, a huge impact player on the stat sheet, but he really just controlled the game with his speed and his tempo. I thought he was great.
Here's the great thing about tonight is you can't look at the stat sheet and say, wow, this guy played above and beyond everybody else. And that's honestly what we're going to get from this team, I think, because of Rondo's out. And it spreads the numbers out. You get the bench at 50 points tonight, and you got the starters at 49. So I'm going to say just KG because he's the glue guy, I think, especially with Rondo out now. He's the guy they're going to probably be running some things through more, pick and rolls, pick and pops, that sort of thing. And I think that tonight he had an all-around solid game, 13 points, 9 boards, 5 assists. So that's a really all-around game for him.
All right, and I'm doing Jason Terry just because we haven't really gotten the chance to do Jason Terry yet this year, no matter how much I might drive you crazy, Evans. But they need him to go back to being a good point, kind of pseudo point guard like he always has been, a pick-and-roll running scorer. He hasn't really been doing it this year. I was looking at the stat sheet after the game. He's averaging 10 points a game this year. Yeah. Do either of you believe that? Obviously it's true, but aren't you kind of shocked to find out that he actually is averaging double digits? Because it doesn't feel like it at all.
It doesn't, but at the same time, I feel like 10's not a ton, but it does feel like he's had some really bad stinkers.
Compared to how he's looked so far this year.
But what I also found real quick, what I found was interesting online at 82games.com is he's actually, I think, second on the team in plus-minus overall. if you can believe that. I think he's a +8
Oh,
going
it's
into
because his
tonight.
minutes have been going down so
It
much.
could be, but
Yeah.
but between him and Lee, I think they're the two guards that their plus-minus has been the best this year, and I mean they're obviously going to be getting a lot more time without Rondo.
But watching Terry tonight, I've been saying it for the past couple of days. We've all been kind of saying is that Terry needs to be able to run the offense like he did in Dallas, because he was Dallas was good, he would take over fourth quarters and run the offense for the fourth quarter. They need him to be able to do that for this team, because you can get Paul, you can get even a little bit of Jeff Green, you can get Courtney and Avery kind of trading off to run for a lot of the game, but you're going to need an 8-minute stretch where Jason Terry's going to take over the game by himself when they're going to win the game, and he's starting to take steps towards that. And it's not going to happen overnight for this team, but tonight was great because you saw that they knew that Rondo was gone. They knew what they had to do for the season, and pretty much everybody did what they hoped for. You're not going to get all these guys scoring 16 points because there's just not enough shots going around for them to be able to do that. But in a game where they only took 74 shots, they were incredibly efficient, and they moved the ball pretty well at a good pace.
Agree. I mean, I agree. I think it's going to be this is them kind of now. This is what they're going to be like. So get used to it. And if they're coming out on top and they're dropping 99 to 100 points, good to see.
Yeah. And if we didn't mention, they played the Kings tonight. So
who blew them out earlier this year, though?
That's true. That is true.
So
during their lowly West Coast swing, as it seems to be every single year.
That was a low point, I think.
All right, well, they have an East Coast swing where they play in Boston, then they go all the way back to Boston, then they go back to Boston again. We'll see you Friday night for the Orlando game, and then we got the Clippers Sunday, and then the Lakers on Thursday. It's going to be a lot of fun in La La Land coming up soon. Lucas is raising the roof behind us because he uses moves from the 90s. Evans and Jimmy are kind of chuckling right now. They're from Celticsblog. My name is Jared Weiss from CLNS Radio. This show, because I didn't mention it before, it's on iTunes and it's on YouTube as a video. So if you want to see our faces, watch us on Celticsblog or CLNS Radio. If you never ever want to see my face again, listen on iTunes. You can hear my silky voice. For Evans, for Jimmy, my name is Jared Weiss. Celtics win 99-81. This is the Garden Report on Celticsblog and CLNS Radio.